Three, two, one. Hey, it's Wild Josh from Geek-Cetera, and I am joined by Chase and Ezra. And we just finished watching the Bad Batch trailer, and we're going to talk about it. Now, let's get geeky. So, as many of you Star Wars geeks will know, the Bad Batch was originally a portion of the last season of the Clone Wars. It was a 4-episode run that they did, featuring this batch of clones that were kind of like rejects at the clone mill, you could say, I guess. But they were like just different. They weren't like the same. And personally, it wasn't my least favorite arc that they did that season. I think the arc that came after it was worse, but it wasn't my favorite either.
My issue with that, and I could start a whole 30-minute rant right here, is in that first story arc, they let's try English again. They contradict themselves. So they initially say, oh, these are a bad batch, a rejected batch of clones, but then they say they were specifically bred for this. So It's like, well, which were they? Were they rejects? Were they mistakes like 99? Or were they intentionally built different? It was just something that it instantly kind of annoyed me about them. Is I'm like, I'm fine if you want to say that this is like a special commando unit of rejects or a special commando unit built to be a commando unit. But you can't tell me both. Pick one.
It could be kind of both. Like, they had this plan. They were going to mess with the DNA a little bit to get like this special ops. But they did kind of still mess up because, like, one of the guy's eyes is like,
I mean, it's the picture that we have showing.
So, like, and one of them had like glasses and stuff. So even though they could have been like a special group that they were trying to mess with to make this special TAC force unit, whatever.
Yeah, and they're
still get messed up.
Maybe they wanted them to have special abilities and strengths and special strengths, but they didn't want them to all be different, like personality wise and like appearance wise. But like they look and talk a lot different than the regular clones. Yeah. So maybe that's what they mean by rejects per se. They wanted them to be a little bit more uniform like the rest of the clones, but they wanted them
to have like superpowers. Like the goofy eye dude is super strong. The other dude is like an insane tracker. He like puts his ear to the ground, is like, yeah, they went that way, and you're like,
yeah, right.
Huh?
Are you Wolverine?
Yeah, basically, it seems like they're just giving them superpowers now. Anyway, I could complain about Bad Batch for a while. I will still watch this TV show, though.
So, needless to say, it was none of our favorite arcs of that season. But they decided to do a spin-off series that they're calling Star Wars The Bad Batch. It's not actually per se connected to the Clone Wars, although these characters came from the Clone Wars. But it's actually going to be taking place after the Clone Wars have ended and in the purge of Order 66 and such. So, after watching the trailer, and I was with like you guys, not a big fan of the arc, but the trailer was entertaining, and I think it looks like it could be pretty fun.
I just like the fact that they gave us Fennec Shand in the trailer. Like, the fact that this kind of new regime of Filoni and Favreau Star Wars is trying so hard to connect everything, whereas the sequels did not care 1 ounce about connecting everything. Everything, they're kind of flowing a story arc, which I like.
No, I agree. It's like a funner version of Star Wars.
Yeah,
like they're enjoying themselves while they're doing this, and that's coming through in the product that they're putting out.
And I like that they've been able to do that without relying on the Jedi. So long, Star Wars has followed, the Skywalker family, and so it follows the story of the Jedi. But we get The Mandalorian, where sure it has Grogu, who is Force sensitive, and you see Ahsoka, who was formerly a Jedi, but the story itself is about The Mandalorian. Now we're getting Bad Batch, which is a story about a team of clones. We even had like some certain story arcs during the Clone Wars that was just about the clones that had no Jedi in the episodes. I like that you can build good Star Wars without playing with the Force.
I think what they're doing, though, Chase, is that the Skywalker saga was specifically Force. Because it was the Skywalker saga. But the things that they have done away from the Skywalker saga, even like Rogue One and Solo, those were majority didn't have the Force intertwined in it as much.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it looks like a lot of these Disney Plus things that they're doing are going to be that way. Although one of them is called Acolyte, so I don't think that one will be. But
yeah,
still. So with Bad Batch, we don't actually have an official release date. All we know is that they're saying that it's coming in 2021 and it's going to be released to Disney Plus. I'm kind of excited about that because it looks like Disney Plus is going to be very Marvel centric going forward in 2021. So getting some Star Wars in 2021 will be nice, even if it is just like Bad Batch and a few small things, because we're not going to be getting The Mandalorian 3 in 2021. It doesn't look like now. But yeah, so I'm excited. And pulling up the IMDb, we were kind of curious about who is going to be in it. There's not a whole lot on IMDb. We know that D. Bradley Baker, who does a lot of voice acting for Star Wars, is going to be doing the Clone Troopers again. He did the Clone Troopers in Rebels and in Clone Wars and stuff. And then we also know that Ming-Na Wen is going to be doing Fennec Shand, which is cool. But we don't actually have like who's directing. All they show for an episode is one episode right now, which obviously is more than one episode. And when you go to that episode to look at the information on IMDb, there's not much there, but it does say writers Jennifer Corbett and George Lucas, which I thought was interesting. And I was wondering, is George Lucas really a writer, or is it that they're using his character so they have to credit him?
I feel like I feel like if they're listing him as a writer, he's had a say in the writing. Otherwise, you might have to like credit him as a producer or a creator, but not as a writer specifically.
Yeah, I kind of agree that if he's put there in a writer, that he actually had some say in the story and the writing of this, which is kind of cool.
It means we get to see Darth Jar Jar. Not live action, but I'll take any Darth Jar Jar I can get.
So that's all. That's all I think there really is to say. You guys have anything else?
I wanted to say I did my research. In the trailer that we get, the Emperor is talking, and he says that he's like reforming the government and they're becoming the first galactic empire. I forget what the exact quote is now. But I wanted to point out that that's actually Ian McDiarmid saying that, and they just clipped it from episode 3. So I didn't know if that means that we're gonna get Ian McDiarmid playing the Emperor in this one. But at least they did use his voice for that line in the trailer, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
That is interesting. I do think that's kind of neat. That's cool. The other thing I was going to ask you guys is, do you think that they are working with the Imperials, or do you think they're working against the Imperials in this? I couldn't get a good sense of it.
That was something I thought about on my ride home from work today. Is if they're rejects, would they have been implanted with inhibitor chips?
Yeah, that's a good
question. Or if they're a special ops unit, would they have these inhibitor chips? So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe that's what makes them rejects.
Maybe.
They don't have the inhibitor chips.
Maybe.
I kind of wonder if it could be that the Imperials are trying to hunt them down because they're rejects and they consider them dangerous. But
I
then
think
it could
that's
also
entirely possible.
But then it could also be that they're being used to hunt down Jedi. So I don't really know. Like,
I don't.
That's
the one reason I could see is I don't think they'd want them hunting down Jedi, because when you look at the fan base still looks at the Jedi as the good guys, and you don't want to watch a bunch of people killing the good guys.
Yeah.
So
I think it'd be interesting, but probably a little too dark for that kind of thing.
For an animated show, they're probably keeping it more kid friendly than not. Yeah.
Now, how crazy do you guys want to get? Because I have a theory that could be really crazy.
I wanted to ask something before we get too far away from the writing credit thing.
Sure.
How many episodes of The Mandalorian were there?
18.
Or 19, right?
18. We had chapter 18.
Yeah, was the last chapter.
Or was it chapter 16? It was
IMDb
eight
says,
episodes per season, so 16.
16.
IMDb says 19, but we'll go with 18. How many of those is George Lucas credited for writing?
Do you know the answer?
I do. Do you want to guess?
I'm going to say none.
I'm going to say none.
All of them.
Oh.
So I think Chase is right with they're using his characters, so they have to credit him. I would think at least his story.
I think Josh was the one who said that, because I said they would credit him as like a producer or as a creator or something. But that's really weird though, because when you watch The Mandalorian, what characters do they use that are
Well,
his?
maybe not
Yeah,
his characters,
I
but his
know.
story, like his
Ahsoka.
universe.
But
They're
they don't
using
use
his
Ahsoka until
universe.
season 2. You don't see Boba
Yeah,
until
No,
right.
no
season
one's
2.
listening to me.
Sorry.
They're using his universe,
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
so that might be why.
So
So that kind of blows my crazy theory
I,
away.
I
but
guess we'll
I'm still
see
gonna
then,
tell you
because
after
with
anyway.
this next season of Marvel, they'll be using Stan Lee's universe. Will he be credited as writing, even though he's passed?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think you will, out of respect then.
Quick, name a one where Stanley's dead and they made the movie.
It'd be one of the newest ones.
Yeah, I don't know.
Was he dead when they made
Look up
Endgame?
WandaVision. That comes out the 15th.
WandaVision.
Yep,
Yeah.
Stanley's credited for WandaVision. Right now,
So
it's
that's
funny
gotta be what it
because
is.
it said there are 6 episodes that are on IMDb at least, and he's only credited for 1. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but obviously he didn't work on this project, so I'm gonna say that eventually, when it comes out, he'll be credited for all of them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It might just be IMDb is a little behind because it's not out yet or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
So there's been rumors swirling around on like Reddit and the internet that George Lucas is getting more involved back with Star Wars again, right? And that writing credit made me think of this. There's a character that George Lucas really, really loved and has wanted to bring into live action,
Darth Jar Jar.
or not live action, but get more involved and make him canon. Any guesses?
Revan.
No, well, probably, but no, that's not who I'm thinking. This
Um,
character was introduced in a video game,
Oh, Starkiller?
Starkiller.
No,
Oh.
no, can't do it.
So what if Starkiller is leading the Bad Batch, but then like Starkiller does in the video game, he turns, flips the switch, and then they can use Starkiller as a character in the Obi-Wan series.
I have an issue with this, and it's that video game is so non-canonical. It's not even funny. Like
You're right.
if you play it,
The
and you
video
have
game wouldn't be canon, but the character now could
no,
be.
I know, but like I'm getting there. The video game is okay. It's a good game. It is not a good Star Wars story. It's a good story, but I don't think it fits in the Star Wars universe just because of how crazy powerful Starkiller is, and how much of the story it kind of changes and influences. Can't remember like specific details off the top of my head, but I know that it's not. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, he would have to be different.
And
sure.
yes, but that's my point. I don't really want to see a Starkiller that isn't that cool. Do you know what I mean?
So I'm thinking, what if Starkiller is like Vader's henchman? He puts him in charge of the Bad Batch to go hunt down Jedi, but in the process, they turn against Vader.
I mean,
here's what I'm thinking.
That's kind
A
of
lot
cool
of stuff happened to
concept.
Vader in between when we saw him in the Revenge of the Sith, and when we see him in a New Hope, and even like if we go even to when we see Vader getting electrocuted by the Emperor in Return of the Jedi, we see like his insides and he's cut up way more than when he got into that fight with Obi-Wan. So something happened to him. They even show like there's a breakdown where you see he has fake vertebrae, like metal robotic vertebrae in him. So he faced some opponent in that time frame that really beat him up. I think it would be cool if it was Starkiller.
Yeah. What do you think, Chase?
Anything?
I don't know. I'm trying to think, because I totally understand Ezra's point of view. If you wanted to tell me, hey, they're bringing back Revan, but he's not going to be as powerful, and Revan's not even on the Starkiller level, but if you tell me you're going to nerf Revan, I'm like, well, what's the point? So if you have a character like Starkiller, and you're like, yeah, we're going to bring him back, but he's not even really going to be the same character as he is in the video game, then what's the point of making it the same character? Why can't it just be a new character? Like, wouldn't the idea of bringing in the name Starkiller and, connecting it for your fans be to have the Starkiller that was in the video game?
You could say, yeah, I guess I see what you're saying, but you could say the same thing with Thrawn, right? Thrawn was a loved character from the books. They brought him in. He's not exactly the same Thrawn, Because Thrawn in the books, he had actually the ability, or he had a creature that had the ability to like negate the force around him and stuff. In the original Thrawn, that hasn't been introduced at all in the new Thrawn. So you could say he's kind of a nerfed version of himself,
Yeah.
but people still love him.
But also, like, isn't there canon Vader books now that kind of
Comics
fill in
and stuff, yeah.
all of the details that like what happens to him like between 3 and 4 and all that nonsense?
I mean, you're talking about a time frame of what, 20 years?
We do have.
I don't know.
There is some comics, but I don't know how
Yeah.
long those comics span over.
I mean, it's just an idea. I know we didn't see any glimpse of that in the trailer, but it's the same thing with the trailer we got from The Mandalorian, right? We got no glimpse of any of the stuff for half the season of Mandalorian. So they can be doing that very easily, editing out like the real story plot of what's going to be the Bad Batch. I think it would be cool. I know that George Lucas has an affinity for Starkiller.
Chase had a grin on his face when you mentioned that George Lucas wants, or they like, it's rumored that he's being more involved. And I had a little bit more of a worried face because this is the kind of stuff that I'm expecting. Completely canon breaking stuff from Lucas that ultimately I'm not going to be happy about. I love all of Lucas's work so far, but like if he really wants to retcon all of the new trilogy and replace it with his own version that we've already talked about being really not good, that I'm not on board for that, because I'd rather have the trash that we have now rather than the more trash that we have.
The thing that gives me hope is I don't think that this would ever go back to being Lucas is Star Wars, because now they have the foundation of Favreau, Filoni, Bryce Dallas Howard, Taika Waititi. All of these other directors and Star Wars personalities now kind of have a foundation. So I don't think it'd be like, oh, George, go off on your own. It would be, George, go sit down with John and Dave and plan this. And I don't think that Favreau and Filoni would let him go insane and break canon, because they've been very good about keeping things that make sense. I don't think he would. I don't think Lucas would ever be unleashed on Star Wars again.
All right.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have the only say anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
you know what? You might be right. Like, I might like to see a version of Starkiller that's inspired by Lucas, with the reins held back on him by Favreau and Filoni. That might actually be okay. I can't really picture what that would be, but I might enjoy that. You're right.
So, what do you think? Let us know your thoughts on the Bad Batch trailer. Are you excited for it? What are you looking forward to? And also, what do you think about the theory that Starkiller could be in it and maybe involved in other projects as well? Let us know. Make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell icon. Check out our live streams. We've been doing live streams every Tuesday or every Monday at like around 7-ish. So check those out. Star Wars, Marvel-based stuff. And we're going to have we have an Investor Day one up that's up right now, so you can check that one out. We're going to be going through all the Investor Day news that we could find. Thanks for watching, and until next time, that was quite an impressive display.
Good soldiers follow orders.